friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching, thank you so much for giving us this little bit of your time. And who feels the need for speed and Scientology? But it's time to finally, after a year that I finally got around to reviewing this movie. Very, very good. Talking about Top Gun Maverick tonight. Talking about it with me tonight is the Shape of Lone Star State. My man Tex, what's up, brother?
You know, this film is totally not believable. There's no way Tom Cruise is tall enough to ride those motorcycles. I'm just saying. He's a short little bastard, I'm telling you what. Very inaccurate.
Those crotch rockets aren't that big, though, so if you think about it.
He's like this tall, dude. He's like that tall. Like, he needs a booster seat. That's all I'm saying. We all saw him jumping up on that couch like a madman. He's like 3.5 foot on a good day. So,
yeah, there's a reason why you're riding a Harley. Harleys are made for men that are above like 5'7", 5'8". He's got to ride one of those, the rice burners, the crotch rockets, that kind of thing, because those are small enough for him to get on with a step stool. He need a whole ass extension ladder to get up on a Harley. But we are here tonight to talk about Top Gun Maverick. Is it one of the better sequels ever made? I certainly think it was worthy. We'll ask that question here in just a minute. Don't forget, in the chat right now is that big question. Do you think that Top Gun Maverick is on par with Terminator 2 and Aliens as one of the greatest sequels of all time? Make sure you go down in the comments below, let us know. Go vote in the poll. But let's get right down to it. We are, of course, talking about Top Gun Maverick. It is the 2022 American action drama film directed by Joseph Kosinski and written by Ehren Kruger, Eric Warren Singer, and Christopher McQuarrie. The film is a sequel to 1986's Top Gun. Tom Cruise reprises his starring role as naval aviator Pete Maverick Mitchell. It is based on the characters of the original film created by Jim Cash and Jack Epps Jr. It also stars Miles Teller, Jennifer Connelly, Jon Hamm, Glen Powell, Lewis Pullman, Ed Harris, and the great Val Kilmer, who reprises his role as Iceman. The story involves Maverick confronting his past while training a group of younger Top Gun graduates, including the son of his deceased best friend, for a dangerous mission. Top Gun Maverick premiered at CinemaCon on April 28th of 2022 and was theatrically released by Paramount Pictures in the United States on May 27th of that same year. The film was acclaimed by critics, with many calling it better than the original. It won Best Film for the National Board of Review and was also named one of the top 10 films of 2022 by the American Film Institute. Top Gun Maverick was nominated for 6 awards at the 95th Academy Awards, including Best Picture, winning Best Sound and receiving numerous other accolades. The film grossed $1.5 billion worldwide against a budget of just $177 million, making it the second highest grossing film of 2022 and the highest grossing of Tom Cruise's entire career, if you can believe that. On the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, 96% of 470 critics' reviews are positive, with an average rating of 8.2 out of 10. The website's consensus review reads, quote, Top Gun Maverick pulls off a feat even trickier than a 4G inverted dive, delivering a long-belated sequel that surpasses its predecessor in wildly entertaining style. That's kind of the thoughts that you're getting from most people who have seen the movie. I don't know, Tex, give me a quick thoughts on Top Gun Maverick before we dive into all the good spoiler talk.
Yeah, I'm probably in the minority here. I mean, Top Gun, the original, it's one of the great action films of all time, but it's never one that I've been nostalgia for. I'm like, oh my God, I love Top Gun. I've never been one of those things. I've seen it multiple times like everybody else has, but it's like not on the list of like top 5 80s films for me. But this is a worthy sequel. This is for even somebody like myself that's not really much into the concept, this is a fun movie to watch, especially with as much CGI-filled superhero stuff that we get today. This is like a breath of fresh air. Like when you watch and compare this to something else from today, you can tell there's a difference. I think that's why it's, looked at so highly as it is.
Yeah, for me, there was a lot going against this movie. I mean, from when they first announced it, there was this lingering question that affects all of these movies, these sequels that come from movies from 20 plus years in the past. Is like, is this movie really necessary? Is it going to be kind of a waste? Is there a little bit of Tom Cruise burnout? There were so many. I mean, there's no Goose. Talk to me, Goose. I'm in uniform today for this one, by the way. This is the closest to cosplay I actually come. But but I mean, there was a lot going against this, and then of course it was going to come out, and then Pandemic comes out that just kind of wreaked havoc over the film industry as a whole in so many ways, and the theater system. Pushed some more, pushed by Tom Cruise. He had some weird requirements that he wanted very specific, very in-depth things done for this movie to make it even more realistic, which I was like, whatever. But I mean, Tom Cruise is trying to get a movie made in space, for crying out loud. So, I mean, you come to expect that from him. But I mean, there was so much about this. We were like, there's just too many moving parts for this movie, A, to maybe even be made, but B, for it to look coherent. I mean, a lot of people thought that this movie was going to be wildly overproduced because Tom Cruise was showing that he wanted to go very extra for this film. And then I saw the film, and I'm like, holy shit. It's gnarly. I said of Ghostbusters Afterlife that may have been positively affected by the pandemic, because since it didn't hit its initial release date, Reitman said that, since we weren't going to make it, we pulled it back into the editing room and we tightened that movie up a lot. We did some things. We examined it a little more deeply that we wouldn't have had time to do without the pandemic kind of closing theaters for a year and a half. And I think that helped that movie a lot. And maybe that's one of the things that helped this movie. It's like he was able to hit a few notes. He was able to hit a few brushstrokes with this that he maybe wouldn't have been able to unless he'd had that extra year and a half of production. And I can't imagine. I mean, this movie probably would have already been pretty good to begin with. But I mean, I feel like now he really went balls out and just made this the best Top Gun sequel it could have been, and it shows. I mean, there's so many really cool things about this movie that kind of blew you away. But let's start with the cast. I mean, you're getting Tom Cruise back, which is kind of a no-brainer. I mean, it's Top Gun Maverick, of course, so obviously he's going to be kind of the center of this movie. But I mean, really adding Miles Teller as Goose's son, the other pilots and stuff. I think one of the best things about this movie is the cast. Tex, what did you think of the cast outside of Tom Cruise and how they kind of supported his whole vision for this film?
Well, obviously you had Jon Hamm, you had Val Kilmer, you had Jennifer Connelly, so you had some big hitters in the background. But the team of 12 of the new younger cast that you got to, that were going to make up the next generation, surprisingly enough, most of them, even just Bob, had personality. Like, everybody else gets a cool call name except for Bob. He's over there just hiding in the corner amongst everybody, but nobody sees the guy. But the one that really stood out for me was Hangman. I mean, obviously he's kind of the Han Solo of the group, especially, if you're watching this now, this movie's a year old, you know how it ends. He comes in at the last minute, sweeping in with the Han Solo moment, and saves everybody, and they all fly back home. That had to be an Easter egg for Star Wars. If that wasn't, they're lying, because that's just too similar. He had the cockiness, he did the whole thing, but no. Glen Powell as Hangman, he was really. Him and Miles Teller were awesome in this film. I would say Glen Powell over Miles Teller, but both of them really, really brought it for this film. I thought they really did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, the cast was very, very important, and I think that's the cast is very important to every movie. That's the reality. But I mean, it was really important to this movie because if any part of this movie missed, then it wasn't going to live up to the aura of the original. I mean, that legacy wasn't going to be touched. I think they did a great deal. Like, Miles Teller is actually extremely talented. He's been in a couple. I mean, he is fairly young. He doesn't have a whole lot of big roles under his belt yet, but he's getting in the last like 5-6 years. I mean, pandemic notwithstanding, the last 5 or 6 years, he's gotten a couple of meaty roles he's really been able to sink his teeth into, but this role shows that he can lead. This role to me shows that he was ready to take a big franchise, a big tentpole movie, and put it on his back. Look, I mean, for all the shit that Fantastic Four movie caught several years ago, the Josh Trank movie that got kind of
Fan Four Stick or whatever that was.
Yeah. That movie didn't suck because of him. That movie sucked because it was just poorly put together. The performances were actually really, really good. Miles Teller among them is Mr. Fantastic. Look, this guy's got something. And I really do think that were it not for Tom Cruise kind of by design by Tom Cruise, not kind of like really running this entire movie. He very easily could have walked off with this entire film, stolen it from Tom Cruise, and there would have been anything he could have done about it. Yeah. But yeah, he acts opposite Tom Cruise very, very well, and that's not a small feat. I mean, Tom Cruise is a guy that's been around for a while. He's been around since the late 70s, and he's built himself into Tom Cruise. Mission Impossible and Top Gun and all these other big movies that he's done. So it's not easy to stand there and go, chop for chop with a guy like Tom Cruise standing across from you. But he does it very, very well. Not to mention, he's also living up, character-wise, he's living up to the legacy of one of the more beloved characters in film, and Goose. It's like when I say Top Gun Goose, you automatically kind of get sad because you know how it goes for him in the first movie. He dies in that training accident and so on and so forth. You got the whole, and you get endeared to him with the whole scene of him playing piano, singing Great Balls of Fire and stuff like that. The interaction between him and Meg Ryan as his wife. So you have to live up to the legacy of that character as well, and he does it. Even picking his own name as Rooster, which was definitely a kind of a callback of sorts between Rooster and Goose. Right. So yeah, he really does kind of steal this film. But I agree with what you said about Glen Powell. I mean, he was
great, dude.
I think as I recall, Glen Powell was actually, I think he was actually up for the role of Rooster, but they ended up giving it to Miles Teller. But instead of just passing on him, they gave him this role of Hangman and actually expanded the role after the fact because they were like, we really like this guy. We want him to be a bigger part of it all. So what they ended up doing,
he was the Iceman.
Yeah, he was what he was. That's exactly what I was going to say. He was the Iceman character in this movie, whereas Val Kilmer was Iceman in the first film. So yeah, it really, so you could call it kind of goofy. They did kind of what Star Wars did with The Force Awakens. They basically just made a new version of the original film, but it worked out great. I mean, dude, because the machismo is there, which is a big part of what made the first movie so fun. It's like the hot shot pilot, the action and adventure of it all, the death-defying bullshit of flying an airplane at Mach 10 or whatever, and flying over a mountain and doing barrel rolls over the top of a mountain and shit. I mean, it was all there.
For me, it's really two scenes that make these guys stand out. For Miles Teller, the scene where we're introduced to him, where he walks into the bar, he's got the open Hawaiian shirt with the tank top and the sunglasses, looks like he's straight out of 1985. He even without saying a word, he sets the tone of, okay, this character is important. And then later on in the film, for Glen Powell's side, whenever they're sitting in their little classroom or whatever, and Hangman is basically calling out Maverick and be like, look, I know you think that Rooster's not good enough for this. And that's when he starts picking at the bones of Rooster about his daddy and everything else. And they get into that shoving match and everything else. You really got to see that collision between those two characters of how they, he's that smiley prick over there that, he's jabbing him in the ribs, but he's over there smiling. Oh, I'm cool. I don't have any problems. But Rooster's over there fit to be tied, wanting to tear his head off. They really showed the back and forth between those two roles that, like I said, in a film of amazing shots, that standoff scene between the two of them really stands out for me.
It was very reminiscent of the locker room scene between Tom Cruise and Val Kilmer in the first film, where they're biting back and forth. Of course. Not necessarily physically, but there's definitely a lot of alpha versus alpha. You know what I mean? Like who's going to come out on top? And there was a lot of that, but again, it was still very cool. But I mean, honestly, Val Kilmer. I mean, come on, was it not a huge tug at the emotional heartstrings to see him on screen as Iceman again? Same hair, even. I was like, they even did his hair the same.
I know he did. He was a horrible Batman, but he was so cool as Doc Holliday, man. That is what he for my Val Kilmer is Doc Holliday, but yeah, they had to bring Iceman. It's a shame the health stuff and the throat cancer and everything else that he went through, but they couldn't have done this movie and not have had him there in it. Like, this was an integral piece, and it I was happy to see him, but I was like, man, this, how much cooler could this have been if, life hadn't kicked him in the balls and thrown this shit at him? You know what I mean? But,
You know what though? It still was. It was so fitting though. I mean, because look, I mean, if this movie were real life, you would have to look at it and say, after 30-something years, maybe one of these guys would have, even passed away. I mean, these guys were not exactly in a safe line of work to begin with, so it's unlikely that both these guys.
Was that his voice? Was that his voice whenever he tried to talk there at his house? Because that sounded like Tom Cruise.
I think it was digitally messed with a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. I mean, I know that obviously with his health, he's got the throat cancer thing.
Right.
He obviously does have trouble communicating in real life, but I had thought I had heard that he had done that like on set, but I think that he had tried, but they ended up having in post have to do some things. I don't recall exactly, but I mean, it's understandable.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, he's got the tracheotomy thing. It's, there's only so much you can do.
But yeah, just seeing him on screen again as Iceman was just so awesome. I mean, look, you could have not had the scene in the movie, would have changed much. But if you really wanted that one emotional piece of connective tissue to the original, especially knowing what we know about what Val Kilmer's been through with his health and all that, like you were saying, it was just so that whole scene was so great. And even Tom Cruise had said he was just like, man, being on the set with him, talking with him again as Iceman, he said it was like being transported back 30 years. It was just so strange, but beautiful and wonderful and emotional all at the same time. Yeah, that was a scene that definitely benefited the emotional weight of this movie.
Even with him not speaking, Val Kilmer still he was still projecting strength through his eyes in that scene. Like whenever he's like, whenever he taps the line, it's time to let it go or whatever he does. You can still feel the emotional strength, and like he still has that badass in him that he can call Maverick out on his shit because they've been there together before. Like he's, Goose is gone. He's the one person that's left that Maverick respects enough that he's on equal footing that he's not going to fuck with him like he does the rest of the Navy. And, like I said, he's still projected his strength as an equal to what Maverick is in this film. So, yeah, it was cool to see him in this movie, and I was happy to see it.
Yeah, what do you think of the rest of the crew, the rest of the group of pilots? I actually thought they all brought a little something extra. There was definitely a lot of macho, a lot of machismo. They were definitely all the alphas, but it wasn't. I think the trouble they could have gotten themselves in is it could have been a jumbled mess of everybody trying to step on each other to get to the top. But I thought they did a good job of portraying if you were once you get down to the actual situation, the training of it all, and understanding what this is all about, they all really just kind of stuck to their jobs and were just playing the roles that they were supposed to play. I mean, this is one of the places where this movie could have gone way wrong, but it worked out really, really great. What do you think of the rest of the supporting cast?
Oh, like I touched on a minute ago, I thought the new, well, they're not new recruits, but the new generation of these guys, they worked well. Like I said, you obviously had Rooster and you had Hangman leading it. The girl's call sign, I can't remember what her call sign was, but she held her own with this, like, in a world full of, like, Rey Skywalkers and, like, Captain Marvels for girl power. She didn't feel that way. She didn't feel like the Mary Sue type, the forced agenda, I'm a strong woman, roar kind. She almost felt like she was one of the boys, and I appreciated that. Like I touched on a minute, the earliest thing with Bob, he was the analyst or whatever that was going to be for the girl pilot there. I thought that scene was hilarious because he's just sitting there eating peanuts while they're all playing pool. Nobody saw the guy, but he was there the whole time. You could have almost not had Tom Cruise in this and just had those younger people carry this film, and I think it would have been a good film. Would it have made $1.5 billion? No, but it still would have been a good movie. So, it would have just made $1 billion. You would have had that half. Yeah, that $500 million can go directly to Tom Cruise's credit. But no, I think the younger cast was done well, and I'll save the rest of that for when we talk about that part in a minute. But yeah, I was a fan of what now I've never played football where you play offense and defense at the same time. Like the the anatomy of how that works. I'm going to need that explained to me because I played football all my life, and there's just going to be that's going to be a jumbled mess. But what the hell? So
yeah, I mean, how could you top the homoerotic volleyball scene from the first film?
I will say I was happy that was not because I'm like, dear God, we live in a woke world. If that's just all cards on the table here, that's one of the gayest scenes in film ever from the original Top Gun. I was expecting like they're just going to straight up tongue kiss one another out there, but they didn't go quite as far. I will say that for this being a modern film, I don't really see any agendas or social commentaries or none of the woke stuff people like to put in. This film kind of didn't have any of those that I saw. It was just updated action film, sequel to Top Gun, and But yeah, I was happy that they left the gay shit on the cutting room floor. But hey, it's all good.
Yeah, the girl pilot Phoenix. One of the things I like about her, like you said, she wasn't like some forced character. I mean, she was just part of it all.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal that she was there, which I think is kind of the goal we're going after, right? I mean, not that anybody, she's not going to be the one who saves the day. She's just part of this team of people that is doing this, and the gender doesn't matter. Nothing else matters. Her being a worthy pilot is what matters, and that to me is the best kind of diversity. The stuff that just fits. You know what I mean? It's nothing pushed on you. But before we get done talking about the cast, though, I mean, good God, Ed Harris. Does that guy? Does that guy not just scream gravitas when he's on camera? I mean, now don't get me wrong. It would have been fun to have had Tom Skerritt back. It would have been really fun to have had.
He's like 90 though, isn't he? 90 something.
Look, Ed Harris ain't no spring chicken. I mean, look at him right there. But,
no.
But you could have brought a lot of these guys back. Bring in somebody like Ed Harris. Somebody who's been around for a while, that kind of thing. When he's on screen, man, he is just awesome. Especially the scene where he's going in there and he's supposed to be shutting down the whole program. Like that, I could have swore I had a picture of that when he was standing there. But yeah, that scene where Tom Cruise takes off and he's just standing underneath the plane as it's taking off, and it blows the roof off the thing and all that. But he's just standing there as all the shit's going around him, doesn't even notice. I was like, my God, that is just a killer view of him. But Ed Harris is definitely a beast.
Who had more balls in this movie, Ed Harris or Jon Hamm? I thought Jon Hamm, he kind of fulfilled the Iceman quota of kind of being the hard ass of the movie. Like he kind of carried that same presence, you know what I mean?
Who did it better? I mean, I would say Jon Hamm because I think he's probably a more significant part of the film. But I mean, I do think it's funny they didn't have just Ed Harris kind of play that role throughout the film, like maybe have him be the one in charge of this mission. Because that's the one thing I think is a bit misleading about the title is like Top Gun is that fighter school in Southern California. It's actually like 3 or 4 of them up and down the coast, but the one they think of is in Southern California. But it wasn't really about the competition as much as it was training for this mission. So it's not like they're going back to pilot school. They're all training for this mission. So it's a bit different in that respect. But it would have been interesting to have seen Ed Harris kind of like follow this whole thing through. Like he's going, like maybe find out that he was going there to cancel this program, not because the program wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing, maybe because he knew that they needed Tom Cruise's character to go to Miramar to train this stuff. So it wasn't like they were canceling the program. They were just moving Maverick to a place where they thought that he was going to be more needed right now. And then Ed Harris could have been the one that kind of walked that whole process through instead of transferring it to Jon Hamm, which don't get me wrong. Dude, Jon Hamm fills out that uniform. Like, let's be honest here. Jon Hamm fills out the uniform. But yeah, and he had great presence throughout all of it. But I think it would have been a lot cooler just to see Ed Harris follow this whole thing all the way through.
Yeah, I don't know. They both. It seems like Ed Harris was maybe they didn't have him for long because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't see him after that office visit for the rest of the film. Like I don't remember him coming at the end or anything. So maybe that was just they had him for a couple days or something, and then they had Jon Hamm for the rest of the shoot or whatever. But I don't know, the Jon Hamm role in this, it felt like what's his face? Oh, Alec Baldwin in Pearl Harbor. Like he kind of was on the same level what they both were in their respective films. I kind of wanted more Jon Hamm. I'll be real honest with you. I thought he was pretty badass in this movie. But I know it would have been sacrilegious to recast Jon Hamm as Iceman or something. But I I like Jon Hamm. I'm a fan of his. I like a lot of the stuff that he's done. I've wanted him to play Batman for a long time, as well as many other people have. But I'm a fan of his.
Yeah, he definitely carried his weight in the movie, being the gruff, lead instructor or whatever the hell he was at Top Gun. But let's move on now to the plot, and again, kind of an interesting plot in the fact that it's really, really vague. But I think that's one of the things that kind of helped this movie be successful. An unnamed enemy, which we can assume is one of the Middle Eastern enemies. An unnamed enemy is trying to enrich some uranium, and that's the whole point of the story. Is Maverick has to train
I wonder who that could
be. Yeah, is that Maverick has to train this group of the best, handful of the best pilots they could find to take out this uranium enrichment thing. The plot seems very generic, but man, the way they put this film together made it all seem so much bigger. What did you think of the plot of the film overall?
This is an 80s action film brought to 2023 where plot's not necessary. It just needs to be good enough to let the action and the stars carry it. You just gave it right there. Oh, well, here's the thing. We got to go blow up and we're going to have some fun shenanigans along the way. That's all you need to know. Enjoy your popcorn and watch the cool, planes do stunts. Plot is not necessary here. This is not some convoluted trilogy of, whatever. This is very straightforward and to the point. And you know what? I like that. Most of my favorite movies don't convolute. As Joe Bob Briggs always says, they don't let plot get in the way of a good story. And this is a good story. You don't need 15 layers of plot. You know what I mean?
Well, this movie's got a couple of different plots that all kind of work together. It's like you have the plot of, the whole thing between Maverick and Rooster. You've got Maverick and the Penny character, which I think is actually really fun. You've got, it's all set to the background of this mission where you have to go blow some shit up in, whatever the hell unnamed country they're in. I actually thought it worked out really well. It kind of was a larger mosaic. There isn't one part of this that kind of runs over everything, except for maybe the whole plot between Maverick and Rooster, like that whole emotional character-driven thing, which was a little bit different than the first movie. I mean, you kind of had the whole love story going on between him and Kelly McGillis, and then the anger between him and Iceman. So it's kind of maybe it's a little bit kind of the same, just kind of redirected a little bit, but yeah, I mean, there was several plot lines that kind of all tied together at one point, which I thought was pretty cool. Instead of just focusing on an enemy, trying to modernize it and making it real world by saying we're going after Libya, we're going after Russia, we're going after Ukraine, we're going after one of these countries that we're having real life problems with, geopolitically, making it kind of general and not putting a name to the bad guys. I mean, even the enemy planes they're fighting don't really have any identifying marks on them necessarily.
There's no markings on those planes whatsoever. I paused to actually look. I'm like, there's not a flag. There's not like a call sign or a number. Generic villain, like generic European villain is what they went for here, but it is what it is. So
yeah, I mean, so on that note, I thought the plot worked out really, really well. But again, it worked. Look, it is not a shot-for-shot remake, but it is definitely in the same spirit of the original film. It is.
Oh yeah.
It is super patriotic, just like the first film. It's intentionally vague, so you don't have to bother pissing off any of the countries that, whatever. You're not calling a specific country, so you don't have to point anger at anybody. it really is just about what's happening on the screen, which I thought worked out very, very well. And of course, you part of me was just like, they can't bomb this place because it's sitting in a crater. It's like, how did they build this place down there to begin with? It's like, is there no road?
Right.
did they just airlift all the equipment in?
They had a trench. There was a trench that went through, much like Star Wars, with the whole trench run at the end of the original. But, hey, it's fine. What are you going to do? So.
Yeah, for a minute, I expected to hear Obi-Wan's voice saying, trust the Force. Trust the Force, Maverick.
Use the Force, Maverick. Use the Force. Maverick. Well, one thing I will say plot-wise, though, obviously they use cell phones, so we know this is a modern film. But take that out of it, they don't, obviously they're playing 80s music. They're playing Jerry Lee Lewis, Great Balls of Fire. Like, they keep it very vague in what year it takes place in. So in 20 years, when you watch this film, it's not going to be as dated going forward, which I like when movies do that. They kind of keep it, they don't attach themselves to just this, unless it's a time period piece where you have to do that. They kept it loose and vague enough where it could be within the span of 20 or so years. So I think that's going to help this age well as it goes forward. But I like that they did that as well for the plot wise.
Yeah, again, I thought it was really, really smart to not attach this thing to any real world scenarios. Like, it's not Libya, it's not Syria, it's not Ukraine, it's not North Korea.
Whenever Maverick goes into the bar at the beginning of the film, doesn't she say, Jennifer Connelly said that he went to Afghanistan both times?
Yeah, but that's not who the bad guy in the movie is. It's just saying that he's been around for
right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any kind of hidden messages, because he was shipped around from Bosnia to Afghanistan both times. So I mean, they're keeping it loose, but if you really wanted to study it, you could probably attach it if you wanted to. But it's whatever.
Yeah, but let's ask the question. I mean, look, for the longest time, we've said that generally speaking, sequels to great movies don't work out very well. But this movie certainly did. We've talked many times about Terminator 2 being an elite sequel, about Aliens being an elite sequel. Do you think that this is now qualified as one of the best sequels ever made?
I think on the non-horror scale, because to me, the best sequel ever made is The Devil's Rejects. Just from the way that film ends to everything else, to me, that's the best sequel ever made. But outside of that, it's better than Aliens, because I still say Alien is better than Aliens. I like the first one better than the second. Terminator 2, though, I don't know, dude. That I think Terminator 2 is still number one. I'd put this second behind that if I were doing a top three on those three films there.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, look, how would you rank them? I don't know. I mean, that's going to change over time. Yeah. It's going to change as we sit and watch. If we were to watch, 5 of the best sequels all back to back to back, it would impact it as well. I mean, do I put it up there? I think you kind of have to. I mean, for one, it made $1 billion. I mean, for two, it was
$1 billion.
Yeah, for two, it was balls out awesome. I mean, they didn't miss a whole lot of beats in this movie at all. I mean, from the emotion to the action to the visuals. I mean, it's hard not to say that this isn't up there with those movies. When it comes to the sequel argument, I wouldn't even try to separate the horror genre from those because throughout all of cinema, there are so few sequels that actually match up to the original film. I mean, they're always a disappointment in some way, shape, or form. If not a disappointment, they certainly don't hit the same way. I mean, so I would put, Terminator 2, Aliens, this movie, Empire Strikes Back, I would say is probably one of the elite sequels. Some people consider that the best Star Wars movie ever made. I don't know how you would classify necessarily the Star Trek movies. I mean, Star Trek 4 is
I know nothing about Star Trek. I couldn't help you with that. I know nothing.
Star Trek 4 is considered maybe the greatest Star Trek movie ever made, and it's a sequel. It's the fourth one. I would put that in there as well.
Well,
I don't know how you classify the
Dark Knight. What about the Dark Knight? Heath
honestly,
Ledger's Joker.
I have never heard, as often as I have heard anybody talk about the great sequels, that is the first time anybody's ever brought up Dark Knight.
Really? That's crazy.
But you see, the thing is, it's like if you separate Heath Ledger's performance from the movie itself was good, but haven't heard too many people say that it's the best movie of the Nolan Bale trilogy. A lot of people think that the first one, the Batman Begins, is still probably the better film.
Begins, yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Like I said, a lot of people will single out Heath Ledger's performance and not the movie itself, and that's fine because his performance was staggeringly good. But I mean, he won an Oscar for it, honestly. But
I don't know.
But I don't know.
The Dark Knight is one of those movies I can watch, and I've seen it a million times. It's one of those rare films that I never get tired of. It's not even my favorite Batman movie, but to me, that is. I mean, even taking Heath Ledger to the side, I think that has to be in the discussion of greatest sequels. Like I said, for me, it's The Devil's Rejects. I love the Firefly family trilogy. It's a modern Western horror. It's so many things. The way Rob Zombie constructed that film, the ending with Freebird playing over the long, droning shot over that California highway, it's just a gorgeous, gorgeous shot. Rankings, that's a whole separate video, but Top Gun Maverick is definitely there. I might even go as far as to agree with those critics and say this might be as good or better than the original. Like I said, I'm not nostalgic for the original Top Gun. I respect it. I know it has its place, but I don't even think I own Top Gun, to be completely honest with you. But this might be as good as the original. So, I don't know.
Well, there's two different questions there. One is, where does it rank amongst the sequels? The other one is it as good as the original? Yeah. Is it as good as the original? Yeah, I think it is. I don't think. Look, the original was hard to beat, so I think the idea was, let's make this as good as the original. If we can get in that ballpark, we're going to be pretty good. They got in that ballpark. I mean, they did exactly what they should have done, what they needed to do, what I'm sure they wanted to do, is they made something that was on par with the original. And I think that was the best thing they were ever going to do. So rather than trying to exceed it, I think they looked at it, they were like, hey, let's just make something as good as the original. Let's not try to reinvent the wheel. Let's not try to blow anybody away. Let's not try to make Maverick a super spy now. Let's not have him, driving Fieros in space. Let's just let him be Maverick. We'll put him in a different setting. Well, instead of having like the flavor of the month love interest, like it feels like they had with Kelly McGillis in the first movie, now you bring in this Penny Benjamin character who, if you might recall, is mentioned in the first film but not seen in that funny line. You bring her character back. You explore her character a little more. You've got Maverick's character who has to drive the film. You've got these new characters like Miles Teller and these other ones. You created another Top Gun and made it just as cool and didn't try to blow away the first one. You didn't look. It's hard to exceed expectations when the expectations are so high. The best thing you can do is manage them, like he says in the movie, managing expectations. There's something ironic about that line. Is that's kind of what I think they were doing with this movie. And in trying to manage the expectations, it's almost like you could say they accidentally stumbled into another great Top Gun movie, which is all it needed to be.
When it came to Tom Cruise in this movie, look at every other franchise film that comes up with a legacy sequel. The male lead is always, he's angry, he's pissed off. Look at what Disney did to Luke Skywalker. They watered him down. They trashed the character. They didn't do that with Maverick in this movie. Everything that they did to Luke Skywalker is what you should not do to a legacy character. He's not talked down to. He's not, I'm not as good as I used to be, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, he's an older version of Maverick, but he's still that cocky fighter pilot on the inside. But what's so great about this movie is Tom Cruise is not even my favorite part of the film. I wanted to see more of Rooster and Hangman than I did Maverick. And that's what a good sequel is supposed to do, especially legacy-wise. When you're pushing it to the next generation, they properly used Maverick to get you in the door, and then they had quality characters for you to attach to, unlike what Disney Star Wars did. This film executed it properly. Anybody who does a legacy sequel needs to cite this as an example of a formula to follow, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense to me. And, you mentioned about moving forward potentially into other stuff. I mean, there's rumors of a third film, another Top Gun movie being made. What do you think that could look like, and should it happen?
What are they gonna? Oh, now Top Gun has to train for other generic bombing or taking down of a blah blah blah. I think they struck gold with this one. It might be best to just leave it be. Obviously this is a movie business, and they made $1.5 billion. Probably gonna have another sequel. Will the technically third one have the magic that this one did? No, because look at Halloween 2018, for example. Came back out of nowhere, tied to the original, made $250 million in the box office. Halloween Kills comes out, same crew, same everything, does half of that or whatever it was. I don't think another Top Gun film is necessary, and even if it does come out, I don't think it's definitely not getting to the $1 billion mark, I don't think. But, who knows? It's Hollywood these days. They'll pump anything out.
Well, I think one of the lessons that you have to take from this movie is take your time. Don't rush things. Look, we've talked ad nauseum over the last year and a half or so about Bob Chapek and Disney when he was running Disney and wanting quantity over quality. Like, he went in there thinking every movie is going to make $1 billion. So let's just churn out more of them. So that's more billions of dollars, and quality suffers. The lesson that this movie teaches you is take your time. It's okay to take 3 or 4 years getting a movie out there instead of 1.5 years. You don't have to rush it out there and then hope that the Top Gun moniker is going to be what drives ticket sales. You have to do something good. The product has to be great. And like I said, the extra time they got to really fine-tune this movie, when the theaters were closed during the pandemic, Tom Cruise being a bit anal retentive about some of the things he wanted this movie to be, take your time. That's why you got such a great movie, because you slowed down. You made sure that every brushstroke was going to be perfect, instead of just taking shit and throwing it all over the place and being like, "Here, Top Gun," They were very specific creatively about what they wanted this to be, and I think that's one of the reasons why it turned out so good. So, if you're gonna make another Top Gun, that's fine. Carefully craft the story to where it works with the aging Maverick character. Tom Cruise may never age; he may live to be 1,000 years old, but the Maverick character won't. So you have to figure out a way. Because that's one of the things I thought was interesting about this movie. It's like, for all of the, I'm still Pete Maverick Mitchell. I'm still flying jets at Mach 10 and doing all this crazy shit in an airplane. But at the same time, he was kind of facing his own inevitable ending as a pilot. And I think that's kind of,
it's time to let it go, just like Iceman said.
I think that's one of the cool things about the ending scene when he's flying around with Penny in that little single engine P-101 or whatever the hell it was. I don't know my airplanes all that well. That was one of the cool things about it. It was almost like that scene in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade as they're all riding off into the sunset. There was a metaphor to that scene, and I thought that there was a metaphor to this scene as well. Like, he was flying off into his own sunset. Now, could they make a third one? Sure, there's plenty of ways it could go. From what I've heard, Miles Teller had actually pitched one that was centered more around the Rooster character, with Maverick being more of a side character. I think that's totally possible, but you got to take your time. You got to take your time and make sure that story gets a chance to be like perfectly, meticulously planned out. Let Tom Cruise do his Tom Cruise shit and trying to make sure that it all looks good and stuff like that. Let him have a lot of input, and put Maverick in there as like a supportive character. Make him a supportive character like Jon Hamm was in this, or like Michael Ironside and Tom Skerritt were in the original. Make him one of those guys. You know what I mean? Don't put him back in the pilot seat. That was the one thing about this movie I was just kind of like, when at the very end they're like, okay, now we're going to put you in charge of this mission. I was like, why the change in direction so suddenly? From a storytelling point of view, it was a bit awkward and abrupt. And it kind of gets lost in the coolness of the rest of the movie. So, I mean, it doesn't really take away the viewing experience or anything. But just like, I was just kind of looking at it like, really? If the whole time you're telling me he's going to teach, you may have just made him the mission leader right off the jump. And then looked at him and said, hey, Matt, this is going to be your last mission. You're either going to take your promotion and get a desk job somewhere, or we're going to boot you out of the Navy. That would have been a little more. You know what I mean? I think that would have put him in a different position that would have been easier to watch. But I mean, like I said, the whole movie is so awesome from start to finish. He kind of gets lost in all the awesomeness that this movie is. But I don't know. I mean, do you think a third film ultimately should happen?
I'd leave it alone. Tom Cruise got his comeback. He got to do one last mission, do his whole thing. And, obviously the scene whenever, him and Rooster crash land the plane on the boat, they're jumping out and they hug each other. And then he looks over at Jon Hamm and does that salute. It goes back in my head to that scene where, like you just said, Jon Hamm is basically saying, this is your last command. This is it for you. And when you see Jon Hamm off in the distance on that tower, and he just, Maverick gives him that little salute, to me, that's the perfect send-off. I don't need to see another Maverick-led mission. Just when I'm out, they pull me back in, and I'm getting too old for this shit. I don't need those cliches. Leave it on a good note. Don't stretch it out and just milk some more money, because it's not going to go as well. You got a good ending for the Maverick character. You've got Rooster, you've got Hangman, you've got Phoenix, or whatever the chick was. Those are cool characters. You can do something with those. You can still have Maverick as a consultant, or maybe he's retired doing or something, whatever he's doing. I would leave the Maverick character alone, and if you're going to do anything, do a spinoff, but let this part of the story die, because it died well. But that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of things you could do for a sequel, but the reality is, let it go. You hit the most unexpected cinematic home run that you could have hit with this movie. Don't tempt fate. Don't try to squeeze blood from that particular turnip. You're not going to get it. Just take your 1.5 billion and go home happy. That's what I would say. But
well, the perfect example. We'll look at what Hugh Jackman did with Wolverine and Logan. Maybe the greatest ending to a character ever in Hollywood. That movie, that is revered as maybe the best comic book movie ever made. Obviously, we know he's coming back in Deadpool 3, but they have clearly stated this happens before that. We love that movie too. We're not messing with that. I think they need to take some cues from that and just let Maverick have this ending, because it fits him perfect.
Yeah, I agree. But go down in the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Should there be a third Top Gun film? And what would you make it look like? Let's move on to a little bit of trivia now. Let's see. At the insistence of Tom Cruise, minimal green screen and CGI aerial shots exist in this film. And even the close-up cockpit shots were taken during real in-flight sequences. This means that much of the cast had to undergo extensive G-force training sessions to withstand the physical demands of G-force pressures during flights.
Yeah, I hate flying. I could not have worked on this movie. I've been on an airplane twice, and I had to be drunk as shit to be in order to handle that. I couldn't have done this movie. No, thank you. No G-forces for me.
Yeah, Jon Hamm was quoted as saying he's actually glad he didn't have any flight scenes because he saw what the other actors were going through just for training, and he was like, I just didn't want any part of that shit. It's like, so he said, I'm glad that all my scenes took place on the ground.
Yeah. I could have been like a ground soldier or something of the sort, but no, I don't like heights, and especially heights that I can't control, and being in a tin can with wings does not fare well for me. So no, thank you, Tom Cruise. I don't need it that bad.
With people shooting at you.
Right, with people shooting at me, right. No, thank you. I'm good. if I can't shoot back, then I'm not going. That's just the way that it works. But what the hell?
Yeah. Let's see. According to Miles Teller, the cast got to choose their own call signs. He chose Rooster because it was in the same family as Goose.
Well, is a technically, yeah, I guess technically they're both birds, but I thought maybe he chose Rooster because he, somebody thought his character was a dick or something. But that's just where I went in my head. But what are you gonna do?
Well, a male rooster is also cocks.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Maybe he was like, "Hey, baby, you want to see my cock? See, I'm Rooster. There you go. I'm right here." But I don't know.
Because that would go over well in today's environment.
Yeah, you probably get some sensitivity training if you try to hit on somebody like that. I don't like. Who picked the name Goose for the original film? Do you know where the origins of where that came from, or was that just random?
I do not know.
Oh, okay.
I've never heard of why they picked that for the film. I mean, generally speaking, what I know of how the pilots get their call signs is that your fellow pilots have to give it to you, so you go in there not with a call sign.
Yeah.
So
I was just gonna say, you can't give yourself a nickname. I mean, I've had nicknames over my life from friends, but you can't. I mean, you can't be George Costanza and call yourself Tebow. You can't do that. Yeah. That's not how it works. You can't. A nickname is earned. It's just one of those things.
That's true. Nicknames are earned. But yeah, that's what I know about how they get nicknames. But so that's why I feel like it would have been funner if they would have gotten the cast together and been like, okay, everybody but Miles Teller get together and figure out what Miles Teller's call sign is going to be. that would have fit things a little closer and probably would have gotten some pretty funny names out of it. But ultimately,
actually, you know what? In this movie, Hangman, the girl tells how he got his nickname because he always leaves his wingman hanging. So he's Hangman. So they even cover that in this movie. I mean, there you go. I mean, it makes sense.
So I wonder how she got the name Phoenix. Is it because she was crashing her airplane a lot? Because we always make all these jokes about female drivers. So she crashed.
Hey, she likes to crash and burn.
I don't know. Maybe.
I was hoping for the female equivalent of the homoerotic beach volleyball scene that we got in the first one. For this movie, I was disappointed in that we didn't get the equal and opportunity, whatever. But, hey, what are you gonna do?
Well, she was playing football on the beach in a sports bra, and she was kind of sweaty and oily. So
right, but I guess it counts. I don't know. Whatever.
Let's see. The roof of the shack next to Ed Harris wasn't supposed to be lifted when Maverick flies past when he's taking off in the Dark Star. However, they only had one chance to shoot it, so this was a very lucky occurrence, as the Dark Star is only a non-flying mock-up. The actual plane being used was cloned out, and an image of the Dark Star was composited over it in post-production.
Oh, maybe. Well, like you said a minute ago, maybe the best looking shot in the entire film is whenever he's flying over Ed Harris's head. Just a bit, I don't know how much of that was green screen and what was real and what wasn't. But that could have been a movie poster. You could have had that image and put Top Gun Maverick at the bottom of it. That could have been something that would have made me gone to see that movie in the theater. That one shot right there looked really, really good. So, I don't know. It was, probably my favorite look of the film.
Yeah, Bearded Fern agrees with you. He said he likes the lack of gay shit in Top Gun.
Oh, no shit. I didn't need to see Hangman and Rooster oiled up, about ready to fuck each other out there on the goddamn ocean. I don't need to see that shit. So, no thank you. It is what it is. So, just saying.
I don't know if they intended for that beach volleyball scene to be so homoerotic. I think they were just because it was like 80s. They were like oiled up, muscly men on a beach with no shirt. I mean, we're going to attract the women because the women are going to look, but they didn't really figure it was going to be so homoerotic.
Yeah, but you can't tell me that every guy that was working on the crew of that film, they were like, "All right, cut, great shot, guys." They didn't look at each other and go, "That's the gayest thing I've ever seen in my life." Somehow that's gayer than gay sex right there. Like that is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. There's no way they didn't see it, but it was already printed, so too late. I guess you could edit it out or whatever, but I could have done without it. It is.
Whatever. It's one of the most memorable parts of the movie for one reason or another, so we just go with it. Let's see. Val Kilmer told Entertainment Weekly that it was like no time had passed when he was in the set with Tom Cruise again, and it was fun too. He said, "We blew a lot of takes laughing so much." The 62-year-old stated, "It was really fun and special." I mean, yeah, of course it was.
Oh yeah, no, you got to love Doc Holliday, man. Like I said, that's my Val Kilmer. That was, it would have been so cool to be able to see him, to be able to voice and act and do a little more, but unfortunately, life is not fair to all of us, and we're all going to suffer something at some point. This is his deal, but you know what? He's still there, and he still brought his A game, and kudos to Val Kilmer for that. So.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I've talked about it before on this channel. If you get a chance to go on Amazon Prime and watch the documentary Val about him, he was vlogging before anybody knew what the hell vlogging was. He had a video camera, and he was around this, like all the sets of all the movies that he was on. He was just recording and like talking to people, and they cut all this together into a documentary about his life, and it's narrated by his son, who sounds dead ass like him. Dead ass like him.
I'm gonna go watch that. That sounds
interesting. It like he has video, and he was on the set of Tombstone. He had video on the set of Top Gun. All these other movies that he did, he just had like one of the old camcorders around, and he was just recording and doing stuff. And it's like about him and his brothers making like little home movies and stuff when they were kids. I mean, it's like he was destined to do nothing but make movies. And getting that kind of that in-depth look into his life and just like who he is was just mind blowing. It makes you like him that much more. I swear to God, it's a fantastic documentary. It's I've watched it a couple of times now, and every time I just get completely wrapped up by it. It's just so damn good. But let's see, moving on. At the insistence of Miles Teller, he learned how to play Great Balls of Fire on the piano himself without a double. He studied music when he was younger, and he still dabbles in it.
Yeah, I believe it. I mean, because whenever they show the scene, they don't show him, sliding up to the piano and then cut to just the hands playing. So it's obviously him, and that doesn't look like one of those player pianos. That was, I can't remember. He was also in that Footloose remake. So he's got some kind of musical background, like you were just talking about, but. He's a badass, man. I'm a fan of Miles Teller. I want to see him in more stuff. I've always thought he'd be the perfect guy to play an adult Robin, Nightwing, character in a Batman film. I always thought he was perfect for that casting, but it was hasn't happened yet. But I guess we'll see who fucking knows. But
I still to this day have not seen the Footloose remake.
I've seen parts of it.
I can't bring myself.
I haven't seen the whole.
I can't bring myself to watch it. I can't bring myself to watch it. I've heard so much shit about that movie.
And in all fairness, it wasn't of my choosing. The person I was with, baby, we have to see this movie, and I was like, I'm going to have to pee a lot in my head, is what I'm telling myself. So within that trip to the theater, I had 4 bathroom trips. So there was whole chunks of movie that I missed, but don't go see it. It's not good. But, it's one of those things.
I wasn't gonna. I'm not in a big hurry to go check that.
It was nowhere near as good as Kevin Bacon Footloose. That's one of those forever great films. I hate musicals, and I love that movie. You can't not love that movie. It's just one of those things.
Let's see. Kenny Loggins actually re-recorded Danger Zone for the film, but Tom Cruise insisted that they use the original version from the 1986 film. Did I tell you what? Straight up, the 2 songs that will get my heart pumping and make me want to just punch walls is Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins and San Elmo's Fire by John Perry, I think his name was. Those are the 2 80s songs that make me want to. They just make me want to fucking start punching holes in walls. I want to go fight somebody. They get me so jacked up.
So if we're ever in trouble, I'm going to have those on standby on my phone. All right, Frank, I'm going to need your best here. We're going to have to take some people's heads off. And I'm going to hit play on YouTube. And you're going to be ready to go. Is that what you're telling me?
John Parr is the guy that did the song. St. Elmo's Fire or Man in Motion in parentheses. But
okay.
yeah, it's actually a great movie too, St. Elmo's Fire, in case you guys have never seen it. But yeah, those two songs, every time I hear those songs come on, I'm like, holy shit, now I have to get up and do something. I have to get up and move now.
How many speeding tickets have you got? How many speeding tickets have you got from listening Highway to the Danger Zone going down the goddamn highway?
None, but I've come close. I'm not gonna lie, I've come close. Like that song starts to come on, I start to grab my gear shifter like it's the throttle of my F-16 Tomcat. Where are the MiGs? Where are the MiGs?
You start shifting. You start shifting your automatic like it's a stick shift going into fifth gear. You know, you just ruin the whole transmission. Who cares? We're going hyper speed, baby. We're going.
Yeah, afterburners and all.
No.
I'll tear up my little automatic car.
You're hitting the emergency lights button like it's the Hyper's drive or something.
Jon Hamm actually accepted his role in the film without even reading the script.
I can see that. Now, I'm assuming that, well, was he done with Mad Men by the time he was making this?
Oh, yeah. Mad Men's been done for a while. Before pandemic.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't. Well, I knew this movie got pushed back a few years. I didn't know how long. Like, I didn't really watch a lot of. I saw parts of it here and there. I didn't know what the time frame was. But yeah, no, I could say that. No, I mean, it's a Top Gun movie. You know, it's one of those. You know, I mean, if freaking Zack Snyder called and said, "Hey, do you want to be in the Dark Knight Returns?" Hell yes, I'm taking that. Don't even show me your script. I'm in. You know, it's just one of those things. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of movies to where if somebody called and said, "Do you want to sign on this movie?" I'd be like, "Yes." I'd just be like, "Here, just sign." Let's
right.
Go. That's when do I start?
It would only take 3 words for me: Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm already there. I'll be there tomorrow. Don't even have to ask.
I'll drive myself.
Right.
I won't even make you pay for gas. I'll drive myself.
Just tell me how many days I need to be gone so I can tell my family and bye. I'm out of here. One of those things. It's all good.
Yeah, there's some movies like if you wanted me to be the janitor on set, I'd be like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it just to be on the set.
Right.
I'll do it just to be a part of it, just to have my name with the very last name in the credits. I don't care. I just
gonna say, just so I can make a business card that says Tex, star of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2027, just so I can legitimately say I was in that. So I need. I'll work for free. Just give me the credit. That's all I'm asking for here.
No doubt. Let's see. Talking about how old Tom Cruise is. Tom Cruise is older than is now older than Tom Skerritt was when he played Viper in the original Top Gun in 1986. Skerritt was 53 years old in 1986, and Cruise was 56 in 2018 when the movie was filmed, and 59 in 2022 when the movie premiered.
Okay, but to be fair, Tom Skerritt is one of those guys. He looked like he was 70 whenever he was 30. So anytime you go, what's a Tom Skerritt role? He always looks like he's ancient, but he's just one of those guys. I'm one too, dude. I got gray hair in my early 20s. It is what it is. It's one of those things. You know, some people just look older. It's just, I wish Tom Skerritt had been in here some, like even if they had done like they did with the photo of Iceman and Maverick. They showed that picture like 5 times in the movie. If they had just showed a picture of Tom Skerritt somewhere in the film, maybe in the bar or something, that would have been kind of cool. But we got nothing from him in this movie. I was kind of disappointed in that part.
I think you could have probably, and again, I don't want to say, I don't say this because I just want to be like, oh, I remember him. I think after Iceman dies in the movie, and and Maverick needs a bit of a pick-me-up. I think Tom Skerritt could have come in with a quick scene right then, just a quick cameo to say, "Hey, Mav, get your head out of your ass. Remember, there's still a mission to do." I think he could have served that scene well, but at the same time, you don't want to stuff this movie full of cameos just to say you did it, because it slows down the movie. It fucks with the thing. It can kind of take people out of it. You don't want to make the movie 5 minutes longer just because you want to add in this one stupid scene where it's like all the member berries, like, oh, remember this guy, remember that guy. So I mean, I get it, but it would have been nice to have seen at least some allusion to them. You know what I mean? But whatever.
Right.
It all worked out okay in the end. Let's see.
Still a quality product.
Yeah. Anthony Edwards gave this movie 2 thumbs up, reacting positively to the film and proclaiming mission accomplished. Tom Cruise even screened the film for him in person.
Really? I'll be dog.
It is nice to know that the actor that played Goose in the original is like, oh yeah, this movie's awesome. Because I know there was, when they were making this movie, I know there was a lot of rumors flying around that they were going to try to find some way to get Anthony Edwards in it somehow. Like some kind of everything from like like refilming some stuff for flashbacks to like a Force Ghost situation to where something was going to happen.
Oh,
like
Force
he was going to
Ghost.
come talk to Miles Teller, which would have been really stupid. I'm glad they didn't do it. But ultimately, I'm glad they didn't, because it would have been really hard to... I can imagine his glowing presence out there. Use the Force, man.
Tom Cruise just watched Star Wars before they started writing this movie. He's like, all right, guys, I got great ideas. I'm the first one that's ever thought of these. Force Ghost. We're gonna, we're gonna fly. We're gonna go through a canyon, and he's just spouting off some random Star Wars crap that he picked up, watching these movies. He goes, I'm gonna be this Luke Skywalker type guy. This is a better version of Star Wars right here. Like, forget modern Star Wars. That sucks. What's Top Gun Maverick? It's a much better product, much more entertaining.
And then finally he says, I've got this other great idea. After I get shot down, I pull out my laser sword. We'll call it a lightsaber.
Right.
That sounds exactly like the kind of crazy shit Tom Cruise would do too.
Once the evil guy, I'm going to tell him to strike me down, but I'm going to become more powerful. And my Maverick helmet's going to hit the ground, and then I'm going to appear as a bluish ghost at the end of the movie, like nothing happened. It would be great. Like, I could see him doing some nonsense.
And I'll shoot lightning from my fingers and shoot down the helicopter. And then we're going to space.
He just watched Star Wars. The more we talk about it, the more parallels to Star Wars. I mean, not even just parallels, straight up rip-offs of Star Wars stuff that they put in this movie. But they did it better, so I forgive them for it. That's right.
They did do it very, very well. So let's see. China, in 2019, China's Tencent invested 12.5% of the film's budget, but later pulled out of the project at the end of that year over concerns that the film's themes could anger the Chinese Communist Party.
Oh, let's not do that.
Yeah, you know what I would say to that? Fuck you, China. The movie still did $1.5 billion without you. They didn't need you, China. They didn't need your box office.
We don't. I hate this communistic Chinese bullshit. It's everywhere nowadays. I mean, it's even how much of this country does China own now? It's disgusting.
What I find funny is the last several movies to hit $1 billion stat at the box office have done it without China. Because that's one of the reasons why. That's one of the reasons why Disney caters to China so much, is because that Chinese market is a lot of money, and I can't really fault them, because it's like they've got stockholders to answer to. The stockholders expect a certain amount of money from a Marvel movie or a Disney back made film. So I kind of get it, because you got to make sure you're satisfying your stockholders, or else you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. But at the same time, it's like, you don't. If you just make a good movie, you don't really need China. You will make your money in a lot of different places. The Chinese market is big, but it's not going to mean the difference between breaking even and having a financial failure. A lot of times that it's just padding the numbers. But seriously, it's like they don't need China. All of it was about something stupid anyway.
I think the only franchise I can think of that basically, if it wasn't for China, it wouldn't be profitable. It's the Transformers franchise. those and the Fast and Furious movies, those do gangbusters over there. Like, they'll do minimal success in this country, but over in the East, they blow the fuck up, dude. That's where they get the majority of their money. And I mean, we all know Disney, like with the Force Awakens, whatever. They had the black guy on the poster here. They took him off of it over in the Chinese market because the Chinese market didn't like him on there because of racism. So they're preaching to us on this side of the world. Over on that side, they're more about those greenbacks. But, that's Disney. They're a whole nother mess. But, so fuck China. Like I said, I agree with what you started with.
Well,
fuck
you know what's funny? What I found funny about the whole thing is they weren't mad because China was the bad guy. They weren't mad about anything significant about the plot, about the body of the movie itself. What they were upset about is the patches on Maverick's jacket had like the Taiwanese flag or something about a Taiwanese something or other.
Oh, and they don't exist. They don't acknowledge them.
Yeah, and they were like, "Oh, we can't acknowledge Taiwan." It's like, dude, nobody would have fucking noticed unless you said something. It's the Streisand effect. Nobody would have cared or noticed.
Isn't that what John Cena had to apologize for whenever he was doing some movie tour last year, whatever it was? It was something like that.
Something incredibly silly and stupid, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, dude, there was 100 different patches on that jacket. No, but the only patch that I saw that I recognized was the Texas flag on the shoulder. That's the only one that caught my eye. The rest of them, it's gone in 2 seconds. You don't even notice it. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is, it's like you said, it's a 2 or 3 second shot of him pulling the old jacket that we remember from the original movie out. It's a 2 or 3 second shot of that nobody's gonna really examine the patches. At least not that closely. No. So nobody probably would have noticed. Like I said, it's the Streisand effect. You made a big deal out of it. That's the only reason people noticed it. If you just left it alone, the only
people who are going to do that are the YouTubers that go, "Oh, here's 155 Easter eggs from Top Gun Maverick," and they'll pause it on that scene, and then they'll pinpoint every single little patch and tell you what it means. That's literally the only people in the world that are going to do it. Everybody else is like, "Oh, cool. He's got the aviators. Cool, he's got the jacket on. Oh, there's the motorcycle." That's what the rest of the world thinks, China. You're a bunch of idiots. But whatever.
You guys are morons. Let's see. Because she suffers from a crippling fear of flying, Tom Cruise helped co-star Jennifer Connelly overcome her phobia by taking her for a ride in his 1946 vintage P-51 Mustang, a World War II plane that he has owned since 2001. Because when you've got all the money in the world to play with and a whole religion that's got your back, you can have fun toys like that.
Yeah, he's got his fake God and money on his side. He can do whatever he wants. Like, Tom Cruise can do whatever he needs to do. So I don't know how. Like I said, I've been on 2 airplanes in my life. It helped me. Like, I can manage it now. If I had to fly, I could. That doesn't mean I like it. Like, I don't like, if we're going level, I'm good. The minute that plane starts to turn sideways, nope, I'm sitting in the back of my seat and I'm praying to Jesus, like, this is it. I'm sorry. And I start apologizing for everything that I've done wrong that day and that week. But, I ain't doing it.
You only go back a week?
Well, obviously you do like a blanket, I'm sorry for the last 25 years. Then you get to some specific ones that you can think of. It's one of those
things. That's funny. Let's see. Tom Cruise is. Let me find a better picture for this. Let's see. Tom Cruise is 5'7" in height. That's 1.7 meters, which is the ideal height for fighter pilots. 5'7". You never really. There's one shot in this movie that I saw where he's with that new young group of pilots where they're all standing up, and it is very clear how much smaller he is than everybody else. Because it's just like a half second. It's when I believe it's when they're all walking into like that class, like in that hangar or whatever. You see Tom Cruise standing behind everybody. They all walk in front of him.
and you can see Miles Teller is like a head taller than Tom Cruise is. Hangman definitely was. The girl, she may have even been taller than him. I'm not sure, but he is a tiny little old dude. But it's one of those things.
Yeah, I think at my peak, I hit about 6 feet, and now I've gotten to that age where I'm starting to shrink a bit, so now I'm like 5'11". But yeah, to know that I am still that much taller than Tom Cruise is actually still kind of funny. It makes me giggle. But I mean, 5'7".
You said he's 5.
He's 5'7".
Let's see, I'm 6'5". I'm 6'5" without boots on. I'm almost a foot taller than that son of a bitch. That is gnarly. That's crazy.
Let's see. This is the second film since the COVID-19 pandemic that has grossed
I'll be right back.
$1 billion. Okay, that has grossed $1 billion worldwide after Spider-Man: No Way Home in 2021. I'm not sure that. I don't know how updated this is. There's probably another film. Let me go look real quick. Let's see. I have to go to probably Box Office Mojo. Will be my best way of doing this. But I'm pretty sure there's another film that has done $1 billion. Go to Box Office Mojo, see if I can find out. See Casey chiming in on whether Top Gun Maverick is good. He's actually saying something. He's actually saying something worth listening to this time. Let's see, what does Casey say?
I know Aquaman did $1 billion. Did that come out after this one?
No, that was before. Aquaman came out before the pandemic. That was 2019.
Did it?
Yeah.
I didn't remember when it came out, but I know it did $1 billion.
Hit the wrong button.
Casey says Top Gun Maverick is neck to neck to the original. I have never heard that term or phrase, Casey. That is a new one for me, sir.
Neck and
you mean neck,
not
and neck.
To neck.
Neck to neck is something that they do in that homoerotic volleyball scenes in the first Top Gun, but we don't talk about that.
Yeah, so. That's obviously Casey's favorite scene. Casey also says, what's the poll say? I only see yes or no. Well, if you click on the poll, Casey, it'll actually give you the whole question. The question is, do you think Top Gun Maverick is on par with Terminator 2 and Aliens as one of the greatest sequels of all time? So that's why it says yes or no. Normally, I would put something in there like Casey is a re or something like that, just for shits and giggles. But so many people were voting on stuff like that it was actually skewing the poll results. I actually wanted to get like a real answer this time. So, but
holy
Casey
shit!
Yes.
Casey actually voted. Casey voted something other than straight poop. He voted yes on the poll.
Well, I didn't put straight poop because people would vote on that just for shits and giggles. I wanted like a real.
Is hell freezing? Hell, let me check the ground. Hell ain't froze over yet, so we're not in trouble. So, okay, I guess we're all right then.
Let's see, yearly. If we go, let's see, 20. Well, I mean, Barbie's made a bunch of money.
Oh yeah, Barbie. I don't think any Marvel film did $1 billion. Well, Captain Marvel 1 did $1 billion, but that was between Endgame
that was pre-pandemic though.
What else did $1 billion? Oh, I can't think of anything that did $1 billion.
In-year releases. Let's see.
Trying to remember what else could have.
Spider-Man: No Way Home, Barbie, obviously.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bad Boys was pre-pandemic. Endgame was pre-pandemic.
Yeah. I know this. I know Godzilla versus Kong didn't hit $1 billion. It made a good chunk of money, but it didn't get it to $1 billion quite there. I can't think of another one.
Super Mario Brothers did $1 billion.
Okay.
Oppenheimer fell just short. Oppenheimer fell just short.
Oppenheimer didn't get $1 billion? Really?
950 million. No, I'm not saying that's a bad number or anything. Let's see. Avatar
even with that IMAX release, you would have thought that would have did $1 billion. That's crazy.
Avatar: The Way of Water has done 2.3 billion. Jurassic World did $1 billion.
Yeah.
We got a 2021.
Jurassic World, the first one they did, right? Not the second or the third one. The first one.
No, the third one, the most recent one. Let's see.
That one did $1 billion. Holy shit! I didn't realize that. That was a terrible movie. Why did that movie make $1 billion? That was awful.
Worldwide, it did 1,001.9 million, so it just barely scraped past $1 billion.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, that latest Jurassic Park movie was god awful.
I thought it was all right. It wasn't as good as the first Jurassic World, but whatever. So yeah, I mean, several movies have done $1 billion since then, but yeah. Like Casey said, how much money that Top Gun Maverick went to the Church of Scientology? Probably a good amount.
All of it. All of it.
Do you know how much money Tom Cruise made off this movie?
I have no idea.
They're thinking that he may have gotten the biggest paycheck in Hollywood history because of the way he structured the deal. A lot of times, especially in the last 20 or 25 years or so, to get these big name actors, you won't just give them, like, Robert Downey Jr. gets $25 million to do an Avengers movie or whatever. Sometimes what they'll do is, if they really believe in a project, they'll say, okay, I'll do it for $5 million, but I want X amount of percent of the first dollar gross, which means that if the movie makes $1 billion, before you pay off any bills, you give a certain percentage of that to the actor. That's the first dollar gross.
Yeah.
The deal that he signed in order to get this movie made was a relatively small salary for what he usually gets for a movie, especially a blockbuster. But he signed a deal for the first dollar gross. They probably signed that expecting this movie to do like $300-400 million. They weren't expecting it to do 1.4 billion. So they think that he ended up making something somewhere in the range of 100 to 125 million just off this movie alone.
Well, that's kind of what Jack Nicholson did for '89 Batman. He the way he structured his deal was very similar to that. And I mean, how many actors, would take part of their money in actual cash and the rest they would take in shares in the movie or something? One of the more famous stories of that is like Ed O'Neill, whenever it came to, or I think it was Ed O'Neill whenever it was on Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He took shares of the movie as part of his pay. Now he got screwed over because whenever it came time to distribute, the mafia had cloned the movie and whatever, so he didn't make nearly what he should have. But there's a lot of actors that do that. Like I said, Jack Nicholson, he made, I think they said like, was it $70 or $80 million or something for '89 Batman for the way he worked his deal out, and that changed the ball game for stuff like that. I don't expect anything less from Tom Cruise.
Yeah, a lot of times celebrities will do that when they do advertisements. Like, you know how much money what's his name, William Shatner made off Priceline? He made
I have no idea.
Of money because when he signed on to be the spokesman for Priceline when they first started to get really big, they weren't a very big company, a very big website yet, so they didn't have that much money to throw around. So what they did was they said, "Hey, Shatner, how about you do these ads for us? We'll give you some money up front, but then we'll give you like stock. We'll give you stock options." Right. We're like, okay, great. So he does the whole spokesman thing. He's like, Priceline.com and all that. And then as the company grew, the stocks became more and more valuable. He just sold out for like a boatload of money because their stock prices were through the roof for so long. So
could you imagine? I wonder how much money he's lost out on. But obviously his mask was used for the Halloween franchise. How much money did he not get since 1978 just off of Halloween shit through all these fucking years? Off of that Don Post mask. That's crazy.
Sometimes you make the money up in notoriety. Sometimes just having your name attached to something. Yeah. I mean, so it's a form of advertisement for Shatner. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of reasons why he's famous. I mean, the most among them is James Kirk and being a Star Trek. But I mean, he's had such a long
Captain Kirk. Yeah.
I still say that T.J. Hooker is one of the best TV series come out of the '80s. Nobody can argue. That
was good.
Nobody can argue against me on that. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, that's sometimes what they'll do just to get the movie made. And so that way they're like, okay, I've got my money, and then if it blows up, I get a huge paycheck, or if it doesn't blow up, I still get a little something to supplement the money that I made, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, he made somewhere an estimated 100 to 125 million payday off this movie, which is insane. But I mean,
hey, you know what?
He earned it.
Good for him. I mean, it's, he's, look at what Independence Day did. Whenever they did Independence Day 2 without Will Smith, how well that went. If they had announced a Top Gun 2 without Tom Cruise, it would have bombed. Nobody would have went. It would have came and gone like it was never there. So, he's worth it. They obviously made $1.5 billion. So I don't think they're going to begrudgingly give him his share of it. So, hey, good for him, I guess. Or good for whichever handler he has that worries about that money for him within Scientology. But hey, he wants to live in a cult, so go for it, dude. Whatever.
Yeah. You do you.
Right.
Let's see. And now Casey says I was joking about Scientology. We know you were joking about Scientology, but do you think they actually got a slice of Top Gun Maverick pie? Oh yeah, you can't tell me that Tom Cruise isn't throwing a little bit of that money around at Scientology related stuff. You know what I mean?
Casey tried to get into Scientology, but he was too poor. They wouldn't let him in. So he was the wrong kind. So,
yeah, you're never going to get to Phaeton level 2 or whatever. I don't know.
Is it what do they go off the Dianetics? Is that what it's called or whatever? Like they have their whole system and they're scam artists and whatever. But none of Scientology is too rich for our blood. We are the wrong class of folks to be entering that church. So.
No. We can get into Scientology. We just can't reach the high level Scientology unless we put a lot of money into it. So we're never going to be like Tom Cruise, John Travolta level of Scientology.
John Travolta.
We don't have billions of dollars to cleanse ourselves of whatever they
buy our way into it
or something like that. We can't buy our way up to that kind of heaven.
If I want to get into a cult, I'll get into one of those multi-level marketing Tupperware scams that, if you sign up 4 other people, that's much more affordable. People just go do that. It's going to save your soul the exact same way that Scientology does. You'll be fine. So just go sell steak knives or Tupperware, whatever the newest scam is. You'll be fine. So it's all good.
No doubt. But that's what we'll start to wrap things up now. I'm all out of trivia. There was plenty of trivia about this movie, of course, but I mean, a lot of the long-winded shit I just didn't want to get into. But so, Tex, give me your final thoughts on Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, like I said, started out with, I'm not a huge Top Gun fan. Like, I'm not super nostalgic for the franchise. When I hear Highway to the Danger Zone, I don't want to go to war like Frank does. But it was good. I like it. It was, to me, this is as good as the original. This is how a legacy sequel should be done. They don't overload you with, nostalgia clickbait. They put it in there, but it's serviceable. And the action was good. It was so refreshing to see practical effects done in a CGI world. And obviously I know CGI's in there, but there was way more practical than fake. The cast was great. Hangman's my dude, and I just hope that Highway to the Danger Zone has a pit stop because I might need to pee somewhere along the road.
Yeah, for me, like I said, there was so many places this movie could have gone wrong. There were so many different plot holes they could have tripped into, but they didn't. I mean, it was, I feel like they probably benefited from the pandemic in a way that they were able to put this movie together in such a way that it came out awesome. It was just the right amount of nostalgia. It was just the right amount of patriotism. It was just the right amount of not really connecting yourself to any real world political problems, so that you didn't have to take a side in this movie politically for anything. You just got to enjoy the ride. It had the feel of the first movie from 1986. Tom Cruise must be bathing in the blood of virgins. He looks like he hasn't aged 5 minutes since the last movie.
Adrenochrome, man.
Yeah, well, Xenu's doing it for him. But Yeah, look. I mean, dude, this again. So this when I first heard Top Gun sequel, I was like, just don't bother. I mean, the first movie is a classic. It's a classic of 80s action cinema, one of the greatest decades ever of entertainment. How do you possibly even match that? And they did. They matched it. They came out with a movie that was every bit as good, and that was enough to just blow me away. I did not expect this movie to be as cool as it was. And it really did have the same feel of the original. There was adrenaline, there was machismo, there was macho action. They managed to squeeze a woman in there without making her obnoxious. She's actually a good character that I didn't mind seeing on camera. There wasn't forced diversity. It's like all these characters served a real purpose, and it was a fantastic movie. And then, of course, you add in Val Kilmer for that little bit, for that extra kick of nostalgia just at just the right time. There was the cool visuals. I mean, it was there was so much about this movie that worked out so well. It's hard not to like it as much as you like the original. Again, I think this is one of the best sequels ever made. I put it up there with Aliens. I put it up there with Terminator 2. I put it up there with Empire. As good. I mean, you can rank them however you want to rank them, but I mean, so many sequels have fallen short of the original film. This is one of the few that step for step is every bit as good as the original, and in some ways does kind of exceed it. Not in every way, but in some ways, it's every bit as good as the first one. So I suggest watching it more than once. Again, it was also really good to see a movie be really patriotic again. It's been a long time since we've seen even military-based movies be really patriotic about America. There was a lot of American flags in this movie. And that's something you don't get in a lot of movies anymore, because it's not like an anti-America thing, but they don't want to rub anybody the wrong way. So patriotism and pride in being an American is played down a lot in movies because they just don't want to be pigeonholed into being whatever stupid word you want to throw out there whenever you fly an American flag somewhere. But I mean, they did it proudly in this movie. They displayed it just right. It was a great amount of patriotism. And again, I think a lot of that stems from not giving you a clear definition of who the bad guy in the movie is, the other country. Right. Just saying our enemy is developing uranium instead of naming them or even making them like a made up terrorist group or something like that. They just said our enemy has this thing and we need to go take care of this thing. It takes all the focus off of the political stuff and puts it on the characters, on the story, on what's happening on screen, and that helps a lot by keeping the focus where it needs to be. But yeah, it's a fantastic movie. It's you can watch on Amazon Prime right now. It's free on Amazon Prime. There is another place to watch it for free. I forget what other streamer it's on, but. Yes, but if you have Amazon Prime, it's free to watch on Amazon Prime. So definitely go check it out. It's every bit as good as the original. Let us know if you guys think they should make a sequel. I'm with Tex. Ultimately, I think we should just leave it alone and just let this be a good ending for Maverick and for the story. They're probably going to end up doing another one somewhere down the line. But my advice to them, if they are going to do it, would be take your time. Don't rush it. Miles Teller he's still a young man. He's not going anywhere. If you want him to be the backbone of the next movie, that's fine. And let Tom Cruise step back and be more of a producer, still be in the movie somewhere as Maverick, but not necessarily the driving force behind the movie. That would work. Take your time. Make sure everything is done just right. I'm sure this is going to be the one where Maverick's going to want them to all become astronauts. They're going to go fight aliens in space with their F-14 Tomcats and their whatever. If
you see Vin Diesel with a Dodge Charger in space, floating along somewhere.
If it gets that ridiculous, fine. Just so long as you still show the American flag. Show a lot of American flags. Right. I'll be okay. Let's maintain the level of patriotism, and I'll give this movie a fair shake.
Every movie like this needs a slow motion shot of the heroes of the film in their battle gear, holding their helmet, walking toward the camera with like smoke in the background with a big American flag waving. That is a must in these movies, so everybody can, scream "America, hell yeah!" and fire off some guns in the air while you're in the movie. Do one of those kind of things.
Is that the kind of stuff you guys do in theaters in Texas? You get that really one pin.
Yeah,
pull your gun, and start firing in the air.
Well, why do you think we still have drive-ins down here? Because we shoot the ceilings out. It works. It's fine. It's a whole thing. Do what you got to do, man.
Right. But go down the comments below. Let us know what you guys think. Top Gun Maverick. I think it's a fantastic movie. Thanks to the 3 of you that voted in the poll. Oh, there's 6 of you. Holy shit. Let's see. 6 of you voted. 83% of you said that you liked Top Gun Maverick, that you think it's on par with Terminator 2 and Aliens. 1 of you, who obviously doesn't know anything about movies, voted no. That's okay. We love you anyway, and we're glad you're around. Let's see. Thanks a lot to my friend, the Shape from the Lone Star State, my man Tex. What do you got going on, my friend?
Oh, whatever we're doing here. Obviously, tomorrow, you, myself, the Rose, and Marcus will be discussing the week's football action. But before we get there, my recommendation, I don't know if y'all are watching this show or not. It's on Apple TV. If you're a fan of the Monsterverse with the newest King Kong and Godzilla films, the new show that they have about it, Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, it stars Kurt Russell and his son playing the same role. And it's like it's like part of it's happening in 2014, and then the other part is like 50 years ago. That's where Wyatt Russell, his son, comes into play. They've had 3 episodes have released. I've seen all 3 of them. It is fantastic. It is big budget. It's what a franchise show should be. It's not like the Disney Plus Marvel or Star Wars shows. Go check out this show, Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. It's really, really good. Go check it out.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to give that a shot. I've looked at a lot of the trailers. I've heard you
it's
talk about it. I've heard
badass.
a couple of people talk about it. The Godzilla.
Kurt Russell is amazing in this show.
Yeah, the Godzilla world has always been so good. I mean, even the movies from the 50s are just so good.
Oh, wow.
I sat and watched one of the originals from the 50s the other day, and I was like, God, this is exactly what I remember watching when I was a kid. It was just so great.
Episode 3, so I won't spoil anything, but episode 3 is, well, technically episode 2 is where you really get more Kurt Russell. But they start introducing new kaijus and stuff. It's not just Godzilla. They open the world up. There's more things, and this show takes place after Godzilla, the 2014 film. It's not quite to Godzilla, King of the Monsters, or Godzilla versus Kong. So that's kind of the time frame that it's in, that it takes place when you're watching. But yeah, this one's worth going out of your way to find. It's a big budget show, and Kurt Russell and Wyatt Russell really, really deliver. I mean, I'll watch anything with Kurt Russell in it, but this is a badass show.
Yeah, Kurt Russell's pretty badass.
Hell yeah, dude.
I was trying to find an image of it real quick so that I could throw it up there. But I mean, I'll suggest the Val documentary on Amazon Prime if you're a fan of Val Kilmer.
I'm gonna go watch that too. I need to see that.
It's such a great documentary, and again, it's a really crazy look into his life and his career. He was vlogging before anybody even knew what vlogging was, before vlogging even really exists. So yeah, it's really cool to see him on the set of these movies that we've seen.
Do you get him in the Batman costume and stuff in this documentary?
There was a little bit. It wasn't really about Batman as much as it was about kind of his experiences on all these sets. But I mean, again, you get the stuff on the set of Batman on Tombstone and all this other stuff. It's such a wild. Yeah, it's such a, like I said, especially when you hear his son narrate, who sounds dead ass like him. One of these days, we have to get around to doing Top Secret and Real Genius, 2 of my favorite Val Kilmer movies ever. when
I don't know if you've done Tombstone yet, but I would. Yes, please. That is my favorite Western of all time. My dad and I wore out multiple VHS copies of Tombstone. We watched it so damn much back in the day. So I adore that film.
I was actually just thinking about talking to you guys about what you want to do starting like January. So maybe we'll have to make that one of the movies.
Tombstone. Tombstone definitely is a must review. That's just one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, historically inaccurate to hell and gone, but it's still
hey. If Ridley Scott can tell people historically doesn't matter with his shitty Napoleon movie, then we can do the same thing with Tombstone. All right, that's all I'm saying. So, it is what it is.
Yes, as Tex said, you will find us, the 4 of us here tomorrow, talking about everything going on in the NFL. A couple of games went down to the wire this week. Probably some more injuries. 49ers won, Dallas won, so me and Tex are going to be we're going to be doing our thing while we tell Marcus how sorry we are that his season has gone to hell in a handcart.
Is that it? Oh, no, that's it,
I know Jennifer was using my San Francisco cup earlier, so it's in the wash. Otherwise, I'd be sipping out of that right now.
Right.
But yeah, we'll be back here tomorrow, and don't forget Thursday, the whole crew and hopefully Alex from Alex and the Garbage Man will be here as we talk about JFK, the 1991 Oliver Stone film, the conspiracy theorist wet dream of a film. But whether you agree with the way he presented it or not, it is certainly a very, very entertaining film. So we're going to be breaking that down on Thursday. And then after that, I forget what the hell we're doing. I don't even have my thing in front of me. But yeah, we'll be back. And then next week, we're going to be doing a lot more. So come check us out Wednesday to talk football and Thursday as we break down JFK. Thank you to my good friend Tex for coming to hang out with me tonight. Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us.
Yeah.
Guys, next week we'll
See you on the next one.
There wasn't enough boobs and murder in this. I mean, you figure they're shooting at airplanes. You would call that murder?
No, I don't count murder unless it involves bloodshed and no, please no, and then somebody gets the head cut off. That counts as murder.
Mutilation.
You know, and male nipple does not count towards the nudity count. So the shirtless beach scene, it's null and void. Sorry.